let's dive into a really fascinating story about the nature of money itself. And believe me, it all kicks off with a very strange, almost crazy-sounding question.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Imagine you just got paid for a whole month of hard work. You're walking home, and a sudden storm just washes away half of your earnings. It sounds completely nuts, right? But what if I told you this isn't just some hypothetical game? So to get our heads around this, we're going to travel back in time. We've got our guides for this little trip, Alisa and Satoshi, and they're jumping into a simulation of the Roman Empire to see what payday looked like for a Roman soldier.
Yep, you heard that right. Salt. It was unbelievably valuable back then, used for everything from preserving food to, well, being money. In fact, the word we use today, salary, comes straight from the Latin word salarium, which literally means salt money. But as Alice is about to find out, there's a huge problem with this kind of payment.
And here it is, the fatal flaw in action. The soldier gets his bag of precious salt, but then the sky just opens up. The rain comes pouring down, and a massive chunk of his hard-earned pay literally dissolves into the ground. It becomes nothing more than a salty puddle of what used to be his wealth.
Alisa is just floored, and she asks the absolute perfect question. If your money can just vanish into thin air, or in this case, a puddle, how can you possibly use it to measure the value of anything? How do you know what a loaf of bread is worth if your money's value is completely at the mercy of the weather?
So this whole scene, it perfectly illustrates a super important principle of what makes money, well, good money. The Roman soldier's salt salary failed on a couple of really critical points.
First up, durability. Good money has to last. It needs to be tough enough to be passed from person to person, stored for later, and, survive a little rain. Salt, for all its uses, just is not durable. Not at all.
And second, just as Alisa nailed, is the unit of account. Money's supposed to be like a ruler for value. But if your ruler's constantly shrinking or dissolving, it's completely useless for measuring anything reliably. The whole system just falls apart.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Cool history lesson, but we don't get paid in salt anymore. And you're right, but this is the exact moment where Satoshi connects the dots from ancient Rome directly to the money that's in your pocket right now.
And boom, there it is. The moment it all clicks. Satoshi explains that even though the form of our money has changed, the basic problem of it melting away hasn't gone anywhere. It's just become quieter, less obvious.
Now check this out, because this is the real aha moment. On one side, you've got ancient salt, which physically dissolved in water. On the other side, you've got modern paper money, which dissolves in value. See, when more and more of it gets printed, the value of every single dollar or yen or euro you have goes down. It's a slower, sneakier process, but your buying power is dissolving all the same.
Just as Alisa is wrapping her head around this massive idea, poof, the simulation ends. She snapped back to the present day, but her lesson isn't quite over. Turns out, learning the truth can have a price tag.
And just like that, the Roman scene is gone, and this little robot, Bitra, zips right up to Alisa. It looks like that little trip back in time wasn't free, and now it's time to pay the piper. So Alisa, probably a little annoyed, does what any of us would do, right? She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a cash banknote to pay the fee. But she's about to get a very hands-on demonstration of the lesson she literally just learned. Whoa, Bitra isn't having any of it. It dramatically transforms and flat out rejects her money. It calls her cash digital salt because its value is always melting away with inflation. Bitra's system, it says, only takes money that's built to be strong as a diamond.
So here it is, the final test. Alisa is stuck. She has to pay, but her cash has just been rejected. This is the last part of her very expensive but totally unforgettable lesson.
And that's when Satoshi steps in with the core takeaway, not just for Alisa, but for all of us. The point isn't just to earn money. It's to store the value you create, your time, your energy, your work, in something that can actually hold its ground, something that doesn't just dissolve.
And with that, the lesson clicks into place. Alisa puts the cash away, takes out her phone, and instantly pays the fee using a completely different kind of money. Now she gets it. She understands the difference between money that melts and money that's built to last. It really leaves all of us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? Is the value you work so hard to create being stored in something that's slowly melting away like salt in the rain, or in something built to endure? We're going to explore that idea a whole lot more in our next explainer. Thanks for tuning in.